ونبقى في أفغانستان، حيث كانت مراسلة رؤيا في قندهار قبيل سقوطها بيد حركة طالبان بأيام، ورصدت أهمية تلك المدينة التي تعد الخطوة قبل الأخيرة من إعلان طالبان السيطرة على البلاد.
Afghan forces all over the country are battling the Taliban, many in provinces that haven't historically experienced such fighting, such as in the north of the country. But according to most, there is no province as important as Kandahar, the 90s stronghold of the Taliban and home to the second biggest city in the country, also named Kandahar. For months, Afghans have said, if Kandahar falls, Afghanistan will fall. It was the first city Rؤيا visited in Afghanistan, and it provided perhaps the most clear picture of the reality on the ground. At the two front lines we visited, there was no denying the vulnerability of the Afghan forces. On the first front line, perched on a hillside between two mountaintops, soldiers and commanders stood beside the rubble of a checkpoint and police station, which just 5 days earlier the Taliban had blown up, killing several and destroying their only defense infrastructure, making them highly sensitive to nightly raids and sniper attacks. According to the commander, in his 20 years in the forces, Afghan districts have never been lost so rapidly, which he says is due, in part, to a quick withdrawal of foreign forces and the money, training, and equipment that went with them. A lack of coordination between the government, military, and police, and continued tribal issues have also played a part. At the second front line, beneath a heavily fortified mountaintop where non-stop shelling could be heard, soldiers spoke of similar issues, but insisted again that if it was simply a matter of groundwork and will, they could take back the districts in a heartbeat, similar to how the US did in 2001. But as local forces, they're closer to the issue, and they say that means protecting civilians at all costs.
So we're just speaking with an Afghan army commander here on the front line in Chelzina, and I had asked him what the biggest vulnerability here is. And he said our biggest vulnerability isn't any sort of resource, but the understanding that we will not go in and shoot any sort of innocent civilians in Taliban areas, despite the fact that this is an advice from the US that we should. They're saying, Talibs hide out in madrasas, in schools, in mosques, and despite the fact that if we could kill 100 of them, we will not do that if it sacrifices the life of even one innocent Afghan.
The commander tells us that in spite of these vulnerabilities, even if he is blown to pieces by the Taliban, he will be proud as he is serving his country. In the last 2 months, over 20,000 families in Kandahar alone had been displaced, with 500 civilians killed in that week, and 200 missing from the Spin Boldak border crossing with Pakistan, which had recently been overtaken by the Taliban. But as I grew to learn, statistics alone couldn't nearly grasp the horrors that the Afghan IDPs are living in.